It has been an absolutely wild week in the crypto world. Legacy markets are pumping today after some better than expected CPI data. We're going to get into all of that momentarily. Before we get started, please like today's stream, subscribe to our channel for more crypto and NFT content. Kevin, it's been a crazy day. Nothing we say in the show is financial advice. Let's get all that disclaimer out of the way. It's been a crazy day, a crazy week. Seems like every hour we learn something new about FTX and what has gone on over there and just how big of a scumbag Sam Bankman-Fried is. So, go ahead and kick it off, man.
Yeah, it's been an insane like news cycle for crypto. The FTX thing, like you and me were just talking about it. Every hour, something new comes out. Like you just sent me that text before the show. It's like I didn't know any of that happened, and people are saying that it's true now. But yeah, it's been insane. I think it was good. We'll get into it too. I think it's great that Binance pulled out of that deal because I think that would have ended up hurting a lot more investors in the space if they had tried to pick up pretty much the entire bag that FTX fumbled. But yeah, man, it's insane. And then we got the CPI data that came out today, and it sent the markets shooting straight up.
So let's start with that. Then we'll get into the FTX stuff because we got a lot to unpack there. So CPI data came out today. Inflation up 7.7% year over year. That is lower than expected. The expected number was 7.9%. Going into it, I heard bearish sentiment that people were expecting to see 8 to 8.2. So coming in under that was good. The core number wasn't bad either. Like everything looked better than expected there. We also saw. And this doesn't get as much attention, but it is a valid point to look at. Initial jobless claims are also up over the last week, which from a slowing rates standpoint is a good thing. That's what the Fed wants. They want to see the unemployment number go up so that they know that they can start easing a little bit, not anytime soon. I want to talk about kind of where we think rate hikes are going, how the market's going to be impacted, because I don't think we're not out of the woods yet by any means, but I do think that we could be in store for some good months coming up. So if we look at how rate hikes work and the amount of time it takes for them to kick in, like it is not an overnight thing. Like we didn't see the first rate hike until March of this year, and it was only 25 basis points. We then saw a 50 basis point one in May, and I think that is what we're starting to see the effects of, is probably the May 50 point and the June 75 point. So, my current take on it is we've also seen that the probability for the next hike shifted dramatically from the CPI report. CME Group, who has been very accurate with their probabilities for rate hikes, they've been about 50-50. And even after last week's job report, that didn't really budge anything what they thought the rate bump was going to be. After the data today, it shifted sharply to 80% chance of a 50 basis point hike in December, 20% chance for 75 basis points. And then looking ahead to there's no January Fed meeting, but the February 1st Fed meeting of next year, they now have a decent chance at a 25 basis point hike for that one. So, we still got a long ways to go. Before the next Fed, we'll get another jobs report. We'll get another inflation report. But if those numbers keep moving in the right direction, I could see a situation where the rate hikes kind of end in Q1 of next year. Q2 could be like a pause where they just kind of give it a few months to let things kind of simmer there before they consider pivoting and lowering the rates. I don't know if you agree with that, Kevin, or what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. I think one number also doesn't, like you said, we still have a lot of time to go, but it doesn't change exactly the target that they're going for. So I think a lot of people right now are currently bullish. And remember Powell in the last meeting after the rate hike, he was like, they're not going to take their foot off the gas until they have this thing under control. So that itself, I would anticipate that if they were smart, they wouldn't just start to ease off just yet. But hopefully if things start turning around, if inflation isn't just spiking up and down like it does usually throughout recessions, we have peaks and valleys of it. Hopefully we actually are seeing some the inflation go down in some direction in the way the Fed wants it. So it really depends.
Yeah, I think it's a very fluid situation where, like, if next month's inflation number comes in hot, then 75 basis points is right back on the table and probably becomes the most likely situation. So, a day of positive news. I don't think this is. I'm not sure if this is a bull trap. I don't know if it's a scam pump, whatever you want to call it. It's a much needed green day, but it's not a situation where you should just ease off and be like, okay, it's up only season again, because that is definitely not the case.
Yeah, this doesn't look like a bottom to me, just my opinion. Usually you have some period of accumulation. Usually it doesn't bounce right back the next day.
Yeah. We'll see some chop again. It's going to happen. So let's get into, Binance and FTX and everything that's gone on there, man, because, you have a bunch of notes here. I know you've been changing them constantly. Why don't you get this going?
Okay. So the entire Binance and FTX acquisition fell through, as we all saw. Binance did their due diligence, took a look at their balance sheets, and they were like, this is not for us. We're just gonna, we wish you guys the best of luck, which a lot of people were upset about. They were mad that Binance didn't go through with this, but also they were just super mad at FTX and Sam. But we got to look at some of the assets on the balance sheet. And as of June 30th, Alameda had 14.6 billion in assets and 8 billion of liabilities on its balance sheet. That's what they're saying. Of the assets, we had 3.6 billion that were unlocked FTT tokens. 2.16 billion were listed as FTT collateral. 3.37 billion held in crypto held, along with 2 billion in equity securities. 863 million in locked SOL, 292 million unlocked SOL, and 41 million in SOL collateral. So that's where we saw a ton of price action, just back and forth trading liquidations between FTT and Solana. I think a lot of people got really scared as they saw FTT get hit. They thought that Solana potentially could be getting a similar hit coming soon. We'll get into Solana in a little bit, but definitely caused a ton of volatility over the past few days, and that's why we saw $12 Solana at one point, and then FTT. I believe the lowest it got was under $2, something around there.
Did it get under 2?
I thought I saw it under 2. Let me just check to make sure. I'll give you guys the exact level.
Yeah, trading view right now is interesting. Just like these percentages are crazy. Just with how low everything went yesterday and just the pump we're seeing today. I mean, Solana's back to almost 20. BTC is back over 18 after being down to 15.6. Like the volatility is crazy right now.
Oh yeah, 100%. FTX has FTT under. It has it like $1, but I think we already knew that. But it was 222, 226 area for Binance having FTT listed. So it definitely dipped down a ton. I mean, just from $22 to the $4 that we saw on Tuesday, that's 88% drop. Insane. And let's see, they roughly had 292 million FTT locked and 7.4 billion in loans that composed the majority of the firm's liabilities. FTX was claiming that they locked the tokens conservatively, treated at 50% fair value market to the FTX USD pair order book. Gets worse. As we saw, Sam Bankman-Fried had filed for bankruptcy. He was currently in debt of 650 million to his lenders. And the same day that FTT collapsed, we saw that 14 billion of his $15 billion fortune was completely wiped. He had that much invested in FTX, and his net worth just completely dropped.
That's a bad day.
That's an insane gut punch. That's lost you. Got me?
Yeah, I froze up for a second there.
Me too. That's insane. I couldn't imagine losing 14 million alone. A lot of the fallout's been like FTX's legal team instantly left. Like they're gone mid to fall of FTX. We saw that the SEC is currently looking into them, along with last night I saw that the Department of Justice is probing into FTX. Some stuff that I found out before the show was FTX apparently had an $8 to $10 billion deficit, and they were trading user assets, and they were losing. They were losing considerably, pretty bad, to the extent that most all of those user assets may not even exist within the wallets of Alameda or the exchange. The Wall Street Journal just said that $16 billion worth of user assets were on the exchange in their wallets, and they had given $10 billion to Alameda to trade, and they lost it all almost. I mean,
I
it's getting bad.
that's it's so terrible. Like this, and SBF came on with some bullshit apology on Twitter
I saw.
today. Like, get out of here. Like, go to jail already. What are we? I mean, how is he on the run? Like, is he still in the United States? Is
He's
he
in the
off
Bahamas.
with? He's in the Bahamas. Okay, so he's in the Bahamas. Are he and Do Kwon and Martin Shkreli hanging out together? Like, what's going on there?
So I was laughing because they someone had threw a stream of SBF in that stream that we had saw from Kobe's show,
Yeah.
and it was Martin Shkreli, Do Kwon, Kobe, and then SBF there, and he's like, prison's not that bad. So if you have to go, don't worry about it. It's not so bad.
Yeah, I mean, SBF is never setting foot in the United States again. I don't know if Bahamas will extradite him, but I'm sure the U.S. will try to pressure them to. But I mean, what an absolute scumbag! This is going to set back crypto, not just the price, but just the industry as a whole. It's going to set it back years. Like this is the amount of scrutiny, the amount of people who will probably never come back to crypto after how badly they've been burned here, and understandably. It's terrible. Like this guy is an absolute piece of shit. I hope he gets what's coming to him. I hope he goes to jail. I don't know if you've seen the movie Little Nicky. I hope he gets a pineapple up his ass every day for the rest of his life. But I don't even know what to say anymore about what's happening and what's going to take to fix all this.
Yeah, and this dude was very different from a lot of people in this space, and he was calling for not centralization, but what is it? Regulation. He's asking for regulation in the space. He said that it was needed, and crypto is the Wild West right now. We've seen Terra Luna collapse, we've seen FTX collapse, but he was actively promoting and like funding politicians and stuff like that were pushing for regulation in the space, and that's why Binance actually wanted to drop a lot of their FTT tokens. They did not, support the fact that they were going for more of a centralized, regulated space. They see the value in there being centralized exchanges and stuff like that, which, as we see now, is probably the best bet. Keeping your money on centralized exchanges, they could pause withdrawals, they can do all this stuff. But in FTX's collapse, there's going to be regulation. Yep. So without, he ended up getting, I guess, what he was going for.
Yeah, and with the centralized exchanges, like I don't think most people realize this. If something like this happens and there's money on there, the money goes to the creditors first, the equity shareholders second, and it goes back to the holders of that money third. Yeah. Like your money, when you put it on there, is no longer really your money. It has become their money that, if they go bankrupt, you don't got the first right to get your money back, which is really crazy. And why we need decentralized, we need DeFi, we need it to be simpler and more user friendly, because it still is very complicated to get your money off a centralized exchange and to keep it secure. It's too difficult of a process for most people to want to deal with. Like most people just won't do it. They either keep it on centralized or they just won't invest in crypto at all. So I think this is kind of hopefully shining a light on some of the needs to get mainstream, and that it leads to efforts toward that goal.
Definitely.
And do it in a legit way. Like from all intents and purposes, CZ seems like one of the better people. Like it seems like someone in the space who does things on the up and up, I guess. Like he seems like a good enough human being out there. I don't know, I obviously don't know the guy. I know that he's worth a butt ton of money, and he's, worked his ass off to build Binance up to be what it is. But man, it hurts now, but long term, it's for the best that SBF and FTX are no longer going to be too involved in the crypto space. Hopefully, it was really interesting that who is it from 3AC? He tweeted out like on Tuesday or yesterday when all this stuff was happening that he was coming back. Kind of made it wasn't Justin Sun. He runs Tron. Yeah. Is it like Zhu Su? Is that who it is? Who I'm thinking of? He sent out a tweet just the other day about kind of coming back to Twitter and coming back into the mainstream. I thought, wow, the timing of this sure is convenient. Like all the heat is off of you now. It's moved over to someone else. Good timing to get back into the streets here. But let's move on from Binance and FTX and SBF and all these other acronyms. Let's kind of look at I want you to pull up some charts, and I want to see, how things are looking headed into the weekend. Obviously, very green right now, but I want to kind of dive into some of the underlying stuff there to see if, what you're expecting in the coming days, weeks, months. And I had a question for you too about some of the charting stuff that I wanted to get into.
Definitely. Let me just share my screen. I think the first chart that I got pulled up is FTT. So we'll just take a quick look at that. All right, there we are. FTT. Yeah. So clearly it broke through the support that we had. I didn't think this thing was going to bounce back. I still don't think it is. But as we saw, it broke through the $10 support that we had mentioned on Monday. And our second level of support was 4.66.
Let's switch to something that's not a shit coin.
All right, sounds good. Want to do Bitcoin?
Sure.
All right, cool.
So here's a question I have for you. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I know that on the bottom there we have that chart of like oversold versus overbought, correct?
Yeah, right down here.
Yeah. What goes into that number? What goes into that line there? How is that determined?
I think it's just so it's based off momentum. So a lot of it has to do with volume. So as we can see, the amount of people who are purchasing, if the volume is low but the price is going up, then it's like between the two an influx to see where the line will go. So if volume is extremely low but the price continues to push up, that tends to push it towards overbought, whereas if it's the opposite, it'll go to oversold. And that really just measures the sentiment in the space.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I bring this up, and I'm just kind of talking out loud here, is that like we know that right now there's not a lot of institutional money come in. There's not a lot of retail money. Well, there's retail money, but like non-crypto native retail money, right? Like no one at Thanksgiving dinner this year is going to be buying crypto with how bad it is right now. So, at what point and how do we kind of keep an eye on that and stay ahead of, okay, now it's getting to a point where it may look like it's overbought based on the current people who are involved in crypto, but at some point, more people will get back into it. Institutional money will see, positive momentum, the macro improving, they'll get back in. So how do we kind of determine with that overbought versus oversold when it's a time that, okay, it's looking like overbought, but that's not the case because more institutional money is coming in and we're going to see even more adoption towards it.
Definitely. So let's see, here's the chart. And this is just the hourly, right? So clearly it looks like it's overbought on the hourly based on this down here. The hourly is good if you're trading short term. The major ones that I use technically are the weekly and the daily. So let's pull this. As we can see, we were pretty much overbought. We're just about to go into the overbought territory when we broke out of this channel. And then the weekly hasn't closed yet, so we're still technically overbought. We go to the daily, we're completely oversold. So we might see a little bit of push up. This will probably push up today when the daily close ends. So those are two that you use a lot. The weekly is the one I use the most though, because you can actually see the major moves in the market. It doesn't, it's not something that goes all the way up or down very often. So up here at 69K or whatever it was, that was overbought, and it came down to here where it was oversold. Again, moved back to overbought, and then the last time this was overbought, this came all the way down to the June low. So this momentum is more of like the big shifts in the space. So we've actually seen a ton of these going up and down. The market just, trading up and down, finally getting to these levels. And I think that this time when it bottoms out, that technically could be the bottom for a period of time. Definitely a local bottom. We should see a move to the upside. But that's what I've been using to track momentum, seeing, sentiment over time. But that along with the monthly you can use too.
And then on that chart right there, are those the 3, 4, and 5, is that what you have kind of projected as, the next bounce up you expect, and then that move to the local bottom that you were just talking about?
Yeah, these are just like Elliott wave lines for charting that. So I was actually looking at this on the weekly. Wave 3 potentially could be right here at 14K. And then if it ends up being something like, this is just a test example, if it ends up being something like the 2001 or 2000.com bubble, we did see like a 3-month rally to the upside. And it's like potentially this could be, wave 4, and then we do retest this $10,000 Bitcoin. Again, there's no information saying that we're going to do that, but it was just to see where we could potentially hit if this were to be prolonged.
Okay, interesting. What are you keeping an eye on going into the weekend besides, BTC? And I know you got your regular stuff, but anything else jump out at you from what you saw today?
I mean, today's, I'm not surprised by a bounce. I mean, nothing moves in straight lines except for Terra Luna and FTT. But this is pretty much the weekly close I'm looking for. And I'm actually looking forward to the end of this month. The end of this month is the one I'm really excited for. And I'll just look at Bitcoin, because I talked about this before. This is the support line that we've had. This is 19966. We broke under it, we closed under it, then we went above it, and then we're currently under it. And if we are closing under this, that means this line becomes resistance, major resistance. And next level of support that we have is the 14K. And if we don't get up to that level by the end of the month, there's a good chance we're going to probably hit 14K. As for how this weekend looks, I'll probably be looking a lot at the weekly close for the DXY. But we can get into the DXY in a little bit.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into the DXY?
No. I can just actually go into the DXY right now then.
Let's do it. Perfect. It's called a segue, transition. Let's transition right into it. Boom.
So DXY took a pretty big dump today, as we saw, and that's 100% on the CPI data that came out. I can pull up the hourly when the data released and what happened. Yep, that's right.
That's a big old red candle right there.
That's 100% the CPI data coming out, and the dollar dropped from 110 to 108, currently sitting at 107. So from that drop, we are at, down negative 2.91%, about 3.2 points. So that's not a surprise, given the fact that we were seeing the inflation number come down, and the inflation is pretty much the dollar is just stronger against all assets. That's why Bitcoin has been dropping for months, and the dollar's been rising. But I think that a lot of the price action that we saw today not only comes from the bounce itself, but it comes from this DXY, because you need less dollars to buy more Bitcoin, and usually, and it's vice versa the other way too. Just the value of the asset becomes worth more when the value of the dollar used to buy it goes down. So I think that's a huge reason for why we saw this huge pump today. I'm not ruling out the fact that this is a bull trap as well, but DXY, it's going to be completely oversold in the weekly. As we can see right down here, that would be Sunday on the close. We are already at pretty low on that. So I would anticipate that to just come underneath. And the daily, we're also almost completely oversold. So when we have those two macro targets that are oversold, and there's a lot of room to the upside, and I'd anticipate this to close up into this channel that it's been trading in for a while. I expect at least a retest to this upper 112 area, if not a break to the upside. And this could be, the parabolic push to the upside while Bitcoin's, going through the final capitulation to 14K, that level of support. But this range in between here is my target. I would anticipate 122 to 120 as being the high point for the DXY. That could be like the blow off top for the bear market for the dollar, and we would see risk assets be significantly down. It lines up with the Dow Jones. Let's pull up the Dow real quick, because I noticed this. Dow was extremely overbought on the weekly. It's going to be going into the overbought, and it didn't make a higher high. So this week is going to be pretty interesting for traditional markets, the dollar, and ultimately I'm anticipating risk assets to continue moving down once the dollar begins to pump.
Okay. Do you think that yesterday was the beginning of capitulation?
In a way, yes.
Because I think we've all seen, or like, I know you and I have seen like that chart or whatever that has the different phases of market cycles, and capitulation is not just like one point and then it bounces off of it. Like it's an extended period where there is usually like little bits of relief. But to me, it felt like yesterday was the beginning of it. And I can't back that up with charts. I don't know how to chart like you do. I can back it up based off of a lot of the sentiment and the, hearing people talk yesterday, like Tuesday, yesterday, just the overall like defeated tone that a lot of people had, to me, felt like the very beginning of capitulation.
Definitely. And I tweeted this out on, I think it was Tuesday. The anger and the fear and the impatience in the market currently, how mad people got about FTX and the price coming down, that was exactly what I've been waiting for months. There was so much bullish sentiment. There was people who were blindly buying into the market. And when reality finally hit them, it was like, I don't even want to be here anymore. I think you've seen the tweets. It's like, I'm kind of done with this.
Yeah.
And once that sentiment comes around, we're starting to see retail being shaken out. And that's exactly what, the whales and institutional wallets want, because they're going to be able to buy what people have given up on fairly cheap. And especially if they've been holding the US dollar, they'll have the buying power over all risk assets. So I think that was a good start to the capitulation. I don't think it's done. I think it's people who got caught trapped in this entire FTX thing that happened out of nowhere. Very similar to the Luna, how fast it was. I think this is their exit. This is distribution. It's just the price is going up, and now they're going to, again, exiting the space. And eventually it's just going to come down to a point where, people are completely hopeless. Like they don't want to see crypto ever again. They don't want to hear Bitcoin, nothing like that.
Even Kobe, who I respect, who's been around for a long time, I listened to him on his spaces, and even he was like, I don't know if we can come back from this. And I was like, wow, either it's really over or we are definitely at capitulation right now. If he is already because he just sounded so defeated.
Oh yeah, so many people.
And I get why. Yeah.
It was weird. Like Terra Luna, I had money in the market, and I didn't expect that. I don't think anybody really expected when that just crashed out of nowhere, depegged and dragged Bitcoin down thousands. But this one didn't affect me as much, I think, because I was kind of anticipating a black swan event or a capitulation event coming. But people were just devastated by FTX. Like, this really hurt. People were saying that, the bear market bottom was in. It was at 21K, 21.5 at one point. And next thing you know, it's at 15.6. Like in a matter of 2-3 days.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of emotion over the fact that like this was caused by someone who had been championing crypto and regulation. And no matter what you want to say about like SBF as a trader, I don't have much to say there. Like, this was the guy who went in front of Congress last year and was talking about, stable coins and trying to, be at the forefront of regulation. And FTX had put so much money into advertising and trying to allegedly like help the crypto market and push it forward. And it was like a knife in the back of like, oh yeah, this guy is just a greedy piece of shit who was only looking out for himself, who by all intents and purposes has a tremendous gambling addiction, one unlike we've never seen before. So, it was just, I think that was part of it too, is like, yeah, the number going down hurt, but knowing that it was caused by someone who had, like when we've seen big numbers, like, big decreases, it's usually not caused by someone who's in crypto. It is, external forces driving it. This was an internal thing. And the other legacy markets weren't suffering the way that crypto was. And it was just like such a punch in the gut, man. I felt bad for a lot of people. I don't have any attachment to FTX or Sam, but I felt for the people who have been around a lot longer than me, who just felt betrayed.
Oh, definitely. It was nasty. It was brutal. And that's in a way why I'm so happy that even though it hurts a lot of people who had money on the exchange, Binance not acquiring them was the best thing for the space. Could you imagine if Binance had an account for FTX's mishaps, and then next thing you know, they have to provide liquidity for everyone on payroll, and they have to. This bear market could last a few more months. I mean, this could be the same exact thing that happens, but with one of the best exchanges that is still currently around, the least amount of liquidations on it. I mean, this could have been a two exchange collapse if they had bought them.
Yeah, it was just so crazy hearing how much money, the 8 billion that they owe, because originally the thought was like 2 to 4 billion, and then for that number to come out, it's just like, holy shit! Like Sam, he fucked around and now he found out. Like this is really bad. So I think hopefully everyone can recover. Hopefully people who watch this didn't have money over there, and if you did, I hope that you're able to get it out.
The withdrawals are open now.
Thank God. I'm very happy to hear that. I hope everyone gets their money off of there as quickly as possible. And you and I should probably do a show where we walk through how to move your money off of a centralized exchange into. Maybe we'll do that next week, where we talk about how to get your money, manage it yourself on a with through Ledger or whatever. Like what you use Ledger Live to manage all your stuff?
Yeah, I enter everything in Ledger Live.
Okay. Yeah. So how to get your, because more than ever, like not your keys, not your cheese, man. Like you gotta, it's time to go. So we'll plan on doing that next week. We'll do a walkthrough on how to move money from a centralized to a decentralized exchange. Sound good?
Oh, definitely. Sounds great.
All right. Awesome. I think that's going to wrap it for today. Thank you for watching, everyone. Once again, please like the stream, subscribe to the FLOLiO channel. Appreciate you being here. Have a great weekend. For Kevin, I'm Jeremy. We're out. We'll see you back here on Monday.
Be safe, everyone.